Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, listener. It's Lara Jane, your host, and I am so excited to have Julie with me on the show today. If you start listening to her and you think she sounds familiar, she was my intro and outro voice artist, and she's not even a voice artist. She is a real estate investor and has tons of experience. And her information is in the show notes, so take a look. She has her own podcast. She's amazing. But today she's going to talk to us about the struggles that have made her stronger. So, Julie, I'm so excited to have you here. I kind of fell in love with you on another podcast and asked you to do my intros, and you graciously accepted. So thank you so much. So tell us about your hardship to prosperity story.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you, Lara Jane, for the opportunity. I've been looking forward to this. It's been on the calendar and I was just anticipating because we've had great conversations and then to be able to serve your listener is just such a delight and such an honor. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You said, we were talking, before we hit record about like times we've got knocked on our butts, and it's like, I know that we've all been knocked on our butts so many different times. I mean, like on a superficial level, this guy, Ryan, in middle school, 7th grade, like opening the science room door. And he's like, "Hey, Julie, what happened to your lips? Somebody punch you?" It's like, so we go through things like that. I have full lips. So, it made me very self-conscious, but we go through like the superficial where we kind of get that like wince, like, wait, what just happened? What did this person just say? And how did that make me feel? And I think a lot of us weren't taught to actually address our feelings and the emotions that were beneath all of the surface. It was like my generation was still taught like, just move on, just dust yourself off and move on. And I did that a lot. And ultimately, I found myself in a really compromised position. I found myself graduating college early, getting married, and starting a career all within a matter of 6 weeks when I was 20 years old. A lot to take in, right?
Yes. Just one of those is a lot of stress.
Just one of those would do you in. And what I didn't anticipate was how that marriage outcome would be. And unfortunately, my story is not a story that is unique to me. And for years, I felt so much shame and embarrassment. I felt all these negative feelings towards what I endured. And, unfortunately, in that marriage, I endured verbal and emotional abuse that led to a point to where I was suicidal. And here I was slapping the smile on and going to teach in a public school classroom. And yet facing all these demons by night that just held me hostage. And with my upbringing and my faith, my family, my belief system, I felt completely trapped. And this person actually, had me in a point where it's like, you can't see your family, you can't talk to your family. There's just all these layers of suppression and abuse. And yet, if you're listening to this and you're in a situation that's similar, you might feel, and if you've have been in that type of situation, when you don't have marks or bruises, you don't feel like you really have something that you should talk about. And so you doubt yourself and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's not this, it's not that. And driving down the freeway, I'll never forget, it was raining and it was dark. And I just got in the car and I was driving down the freeway by myself, just sobbing, just red hot cheeks, just tears streaming down. And I wasn't somebody that used any colorful words. I didn't use 4-letter words. I didn't even use the word but growing up because I wasn't allowed to. Okay. Here I was driving down the freeway and I was just screaming and yelling at God and cussing at God and just so angry. I had done everything the right way. I had chosen all the right paths and checked all the right boxes. And like, why was this happening to me? And being in this just like severe depression and the darkest time of my life that I've ever experienced. And from that came everything that I am now. Like I can go back to that version of myself and say, I wouldn't be this me without that courageous warrior woman that had to go through that trial and fire. I didn't have to go through it, but I did go through it. And when I made a decision that night on that road, and I mean, my voice was so hoarse, I could barely talk because I had been yelling so long and so fiercely and cussing God out. And yet I felt this deep peace. And I just made this commitment, like, if I'm going to live, it's you and me. And it's not you, me, and all these other people. It's just you and me, God. And you know what? You say you forgive everything. And that was really important to me. I love God. And so I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to have to take you for your word. And I made a choice to like completely change the course of my life, to divorce somebody, that first person in my family lineage ever to do that, to go against what my faith world would tell me, to go against everyone. How many times do we actually stand by our own side? How many times do we advocate for ourselves? How many times do we actually say, like, I choose you? And at that moment, I chose me, I chose God, and I chose to live.
Wow.
When I think about where that takes me now, it's like that experience right there set me apart. So now I don't have to worry about, 20 whatever years later, I don't have to worry about what other people think. I don't need to worry about other people's approval. I don't ever have to return back into that dark depression again, because I know I have vertical alignment with God and I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. And by nature of all of that, I have been able to do so much, to contribute so much to the world, because it's a true position of freedom. And that's manifested itself by that willingness to pivot careers, to not have to hold anything too tightly, but to just be like, oh, it's okay. I can adapt. I can morph. I can, be in the public school. I can be in the residential real estate sales space. I can go back and I could homeschool my children. I could go back to the public school. I could reinvent myself and marry education and real estate in the investing I now do. But that's that freedom that was birthed from that deeper belief of I can do anything truly that I put my mind to, that I have a deeper conviction for. I can go for it and it's going to be fine. In the moment that I think it's all going to turn sideways, I've already gone sideways. And that's not the only time I've gone sideways. I've had other hardships along the, over the years, as we all do. But every one of them turns out for the better. Every one of them is repurposed and repackaged into something that allows me to serve and support the world into what I like to call the give and the gain. So, it's like I can contribute to the world, but I also gain. It goes both ways, and it's so beautiful. I think I just add also the really interesting element is I was talking about this with some of my pride, and we were talking about this offline. I have a group of lionesses, and so we call ourselves a pride, as lions, roam in prides, they're groups, and there are 4 of us all together. We meet quarterly, and we were discussing this recently. We were discussing how amazing it is that we are always prepared for where we are headed. We have everything that we need within us. And most of the time, we don't see what we have within us. We don't see the potential and possibility that's there. And yet, all of it is there. And so when we face that challenge, when we face that moment where we're going to be stretched, not necessarily in the way that I was stretched in that abusive situation, but when we're talking about those career transitions, when we're talking about, releasing our kids into the next stage of life and such, to cross that threshold, we have everything that we need within us. And we're prepared for that, and it will stretch us. But it's all inside. And so part of that stretch journey is to say, what is within inside of me? And similar to Legos, like, okay, great. All the pieces are there. How can we build those and put them together so that they make the block that I ultimately need for this part of my journey? What does that look like? Or what do I need to retool inside of me? I already have it, but maybe it just needs to be tweaked a little bit. And that allows me to respond and adapt in another way. So now I look at every single challenge that I face as like, bring it on. This is great. There's something to be discovered. There's so much curiosity now that surrounds it, because the outcome has always turned out so abundantly well, despite everything else.
You and I haven't talked about our first marriage stories, and yours sounds so identical to mine. So it's like, I'm just like dying inside. Like, I have never been able to this day, call it abuse. It was, anyway, my thought while you were talking was, you said you picked everything right. And what I kind of wanted our listener to hear was, you followed the path as somebody else had laid out for you, and you thought it was right because that's what they had chosen. But you got knocked down on your butt, and you got up and forged your new own personal path. And that's freedom. When we can let go of those expectations of everybody else, because I know everyone out there has that. Somebody is expecting me to be like this. And when you can finally break free from that, I tell everyone that I am more stubborn because I will not let somebody tell me how to run my life again, because it was done and it was miserable. Now, yeah, I've been called a bitch more than once because I am not letting you run my life, but it works and it's fresh. Because I fall, it's my fault. I fall, I learn from it. I get up and I go. And I now know why I've always thought you were my inner soul sister. So, like, no wonder.
It makes so much sense. Oh, I love what you were talking. I might cry now because my tears have been able to be held back because I'm just so happy to be with you. But it's when you said someone else's plan, and that's just it. It's like someone else's ideas, and I had to fit those someone else's ideas. And it's like, that's not how God intended anybody to live ever. It's like, I know I'm hardwired. I am a certain personality, a certain type, for better and for worse, and always growing for the better. But life is so much better when we're authentic to who we are. And the beauty of all of this is I really strive to support my children in living their path, in being who they are, and affirming like, you do know what's like, you get the joy of discovering what is inside of you, and like, have fun exploring that. The potential is in there. But sure, I do offer guidance. It's not that I don't, but I'm not there to be my kid's boss. And I'm not there to tell them like, here's a way, this is a plan for your life. Like, no, it's their life. Like, I'm just here as a guardian, like truly a trusted guide is what I always strive to be. That was what my dad, he's my trusted guide.
Yeah, I am so with you because we don't tell our kids, you must go down this path and you cannot go any, but we can point them and go, hey, down this path, this is what I see. Down this path, this is what I see. The choice is yours. And I have three. I don't know, but I think every one of them have made amazing adults. Like I am impressed with them all the time. And it wasn't my doing. It was their inner selves. And so it's refreshing to know that they picked their paths and that they weren't. I'm going to tell you a quick story. And I know this is all about you, but we have a very mutual friend. And at one point he was probably, that's my son, he was probably junior high age. And he was experimenting with keys and he busted a key off in somebody else's self-storage lock. And he came home and he told me what he did. And to me, it was, thank you for being honest. Thank you, because now we can fix it before anything else gets, blown out of proportion. We found the owner, we were able to do something. And then when the dad got home, it was, you freaking idiot, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, they're never going to tell you. If they're trusting and they tell you the truth, you've got to love them and let it be, or they're never going to tell you again. And so I look at that as we were not allowed as we were growing up and in our first marriages to not lie, to be liked and to be accepted, because I'm living a life I didn't mean for me, but it's now time to live my life. And that's what our listener has here to learn, is that it's okay to live your life and you can be successful walking your own path. That doesn't mean you have to change careers. That doesn't mean you have to get divorced. That just means you have to be authentic and start not worrying whether you're liked or not. Because, I think we do things just because we think someone's going to like it. That doesn't mean we have to be rude either. You can still be kind and accepting of other people and be authentic.
And it's so much easier, and life is easier, and the outcomes are far better when we choose to discover and to just follow. Like, let's just think of ourselves as walking Mr. Potato Heads. I don't know what the other ones are called, right? But one of my best friends, who's actually part of the Pride, she talks about this. We're like Mr. Potato Heads, and most of the time we just wear the same eyes and the same ears and the same mouth and nose all the time. But within us, if you open up that back of Mr. Potato Head, there are all sorts of different accessories that are available, and you could put glasses on and you can put a scarf on. You do so much. And when we're authentic and when we sample who we are and our potential of what's within us, life becomes even more fun. And I think about my own personal journey in my beautiful second chance life with my amazing husband. We've been together now for 20 years. And it's like, when I think about that and I think about my personal development over the last 5 years, and I see how that's had a trickle effect on everyone in my family and people around me. I mean, it's led to so many beautiful things, from like starting a women's entrepreneurship group in my town, or even the Pride came from my own personal journey. Like all of these things, as we give ourselves permission to explore and discover, and maybe we don't like the way those glasses look. That's okay. I mean, I don't have to like be in love with every part of who I am, but I can discover it and be like, this is beautiful. And maybe I don't want to wear that every day. I'll just pull that out on special occasions. That's okay.
Yes. I was so happy that you joined us, because we can experiment. And because maybe you don't think you are the person that wears glasses, and that's figuratively like Mr. Potato Head or the hats we wear, we can experiment and we can learn. Unless we have the freedom to try it, you don't know. And now when you give yourself the freedom, you've done this. And from what you just said, it expands to the rest of the women around us. When they can see you can be totally authentic, they trust you and they feel good around you. And they dare let down that candy coating and be authentic. And as they feel it and love it and learn it, that's what they turn into. And so it's just this ripple effect, authenticity. And you have a whole pride and a whole group of them. And it's just amazing.
And what's amazing when I think about, we are coming up on a year of this entrepreneurship group. And I started that, listener, hear this. Sometimes our paths can be lonely. And I have a beautiful path, but I was lonely. I live in a small town, and it's odd for someone to, like a women entrepreneur doing what I do, living in a, transacting in a man's world, essentially in my real estate space. And so I'm the anomaly. I'm the weird one, but really pulling together these other women that I wasn't close with, but inviting them and saying, I don't know you well, but I think this might be a good fit. And now seeing like, wow, this one left a job and started her own business. This one published a book. This one started a podcast. That one started a podcast. And now that one is starting a movement. And when you start to see the ripple effect that we have when we give ourselves permission to just be our authentic selves, it gives everyone else around us that same permission. And we need those role models in our life oftentimes. And so I want to encourage everyone, listener, please give yourself that permission and then watch what happens around you.
Amen. I am so into this. I think this has been very beautiful. I know you had a hard stop. And so even though I could talk to you for another hour or two or a lifetime, we're going to close it out and say thank you so much, Julie, for coming on and sharing that amazing story, because I agree with you. It's not your own. There's many of us that are still hiding that from letting people know that we actually had to endure that kind of stuff. And so thank you. You've opened my heart even more. And listener, let's be authentic. Let's move forward. Talk to you on the next episode. Thanks.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.